Hey guys, it's Matt. I felt it was my duty last night to flip around the channels and watch these shows that typically start at 10 o'clock that lead into New Year. Dick Clark's Rocking New Year's Eve on ABC would be the most famous one in the United States, but now replaced with Ryan Seacrest. And I don't know what I saw. Um, I don't know how to talk about it. It was, from an energy perspective or what I was watching, it was the darkest, creepiest thing I've almost ever seen. And I'm not just talking about Times Square being empty without the people celebrating the new year. It just up and down. It was almost like, I don't know. It was almost like not being on Earth. I don't know what to say. For those that don't know what I'm talking about, and hopefully in the United States you didn't watch these shows, because again, from like an energy perspective, it was like you could feel it sucking your energy out like a Dementor in Harry Potter. And just a little bit of background for anybody in the UK or Australia or any other countries, there were basically three main programs in the United States. I think most of them come on about 10 o'clock leading up to the ball drop in Times Square. The main one, Dick Clark's Rocking New Year's Eve, ABC, now hosted by Ryan Seacrest. Fortunately, I don't know what program she was on. Jenny McCarthy wasn't around this year, which, you know, is probably fortunate, but I don't know. It was it was so dark, the energies were so low. She might have helped things. Jenny McCarthy might have helped things, but we'll just leave it at that. Then I think it was NBC had Carson Daly as the host. This guy they recycled from whatever he used to host on MTV years ago. Looks like he didn't want to be there, but he never had much of a personality anyway. I think a cardboard cutout of him or a cardboard cutout of anything would have been more exciting. And then you have, of course, I don't know how many years he's been doing it, the absolute bizarro show of Anderson Cooper hosting on CNN with I know he's been there a few years. I guess this Andy Cohen. I don't know if it's supposed to be his partner now, or it doesn't matter. It just, I don't know what I saw. All right, and I don't know how to present this. First off, let's just get the basics out of the way. You have the same thing going on, and it just drives us crazy. And you would hope, like my regular friend Tony, at some point you hope regular people see a little bit of this. And it wasn't just me here. It was Pam came over with a long-term friend of hers came over, so it was the three of us here last night. I think those numbers, just three, I think that's Governor Wolf approved. Probably should have checked, but see, they both have one foot in the matrix. Pam is always on Facebook, but her and her friend also have heard me talk about so many different things, especially Pam, of course, over so many years. The best way to put it is they have one foot in my reality too. Even Pam's friend sees some of these fake events, and I've said this, and she's like, "Yeah, this is ridiculous. How the presentation of it." She's much better than your typical normie, and I'm trying to like use them to understand how a just anybody down the block or my friend Tony or anybody quote normal would interpret what I'm seeing in these shows. So the basic thing, our pet peeve, guys, is of course, let's go down to Ryan's up in the main platform, but then Ryan Seacrest goes down onto the ground level, and there's nobody around him for 20, 25 feet. Nobody around him, and of course, what am I going to say? Full black mask, and I've got a Pam, Pam's friend. What do people see? What do people think when they watch this? Like the normal guy down the road, do they? I mean, it drives me crazy. There's nobody around him. Why is he wearing a mask? There's nobody there. They have Times Square, police barricaded off. No crowds can come in. So it's very similar to when you watch the local news. Somebody be on a street corner, reporter, full mask, nobody around. But at least there the normie would kind of justify it and could probably say, well, somebody could walk by Matt or come out of the shop there. But Ryan Seacrest down on the ground in Times Square, There's nobody around. There's people. They let little tiny pockets of fans in, little groups of two and three. I'll talk about that. Police, but for the amount of area, New York, they're not letting in crowds. There's nobody that's going to come walking up to Ryan Seacrest. So they generally agreed with me, or what would drive us crazy. They would say, "It is, Matt. It is ridiculous. Like what? Why don't they just? Why doesn't Ryan just sit there and report where you can see his face when he's up in his booth or whatever? You can." But the point is, I would love to get into the heads of. I don't talk to any normal people anymore. Like my friend Tony, I keep talking about him. I'm sure he didn't do anything. It was just him and his family, his three kids. What does he think when every single reporter of Dick Clark's Rockin' New Year's Eve, they're down there by themselves with nobody around? This one young girl, she's in her late 20s. Obviously, she was a model. She's done it a few years. She's in a full red, sparkly mask. Like, what do they think? What do they think? I mean, how many of them say, this is just overkill, and they believe in everything the news is saying? But how many of them going, this is kind of ridiculous? I mean, nobody's around. Just show your face. What's going to happen? If it was that virulent, we'd all have gone down. There's no possible way, because you go to this Wawa or you go to the grocery store, it's the same 75-year-old guy that's been serving you for 8 months. He hasn't gone down. So the point is, guys, I would love to. I don't talk to people that considered my friends, or they considered me their friends. I don't talk to these people anymore. But I would just love to say, what were they thinking? And unfortunately, the answer is what most of you are probably screaming the answer at me, Matt. They would find, per the download, or however these people are operating, they would find a way to justify it. They would find a way to say. Some would say in their own mind, first of all, would they be talking about it among their family? Would Tony be saying to his wife, why is he wearing a mask? There's nobody there. See, they wouldn't even be doing that, I'm sure. The Andy that moves on to a different frequency doesn't do that. And they probably don't think about it at all. But if they had to, there would always be a ready-made excuse. It would be, well, somebody could walk by, or they're just making a good impression. See, there's millions and tens of millions of people watching, so they want to put the best foot forward. They want to set a good example, Matt. Yeah, they could take it, but there would always be an excuse of some kind, as to, and then that excuse with the Andy doll, or the normie, that being synced to the new reality. As the new reality changes frequency, the Andy doll, the normie, is changing frequency as well, as syncing to the new reality. And that, you could call it taking the download. We don't know the exact mechanism or how this is happening, but saying they're taking the download is as good of a descriptor as to what's happening as anything, because we don't know what's happening. But they probably don't think about it, but in the back of their mind, they probably have their own excuse if you call them out on it. Like Carl, the guy that lives behind me, he's a contractor, just works on his own, takes his dog out to the job sites. One of these guys, a handyman. He's over the years done little things for me, fixed faucets and things like that. I was out after we've had these storms and twigs everywhere, cleaning up, and here he comes, and he turns into my driveway. But he doesn't come down. He stops at the top, and he gets out 25 feet away again, and he gets out just to say hi, which is friendly, and I appreciate that. Puts his guys, I didn't talk about this in the video, but I wrote a comment about this just happened after I made a video, but I'll describe what happened. And he gets out, puts his mask on, and we're at more than 20 feet away. And I said, I don't know what I said. I was like, are you going to come in the house? Or you don't have to put that on. And just, he's like, no, I've got to go. And I'm like, well, why are you wearing a mask? I kind of called him out on it in a little bit of aggressive way, but not nasty or anything. He's like, well, I just feel more, you've heard the news recently, we have this spike up again. I feel more comfortable. But I said, but you're like, we're outside, you're like 20 some feet away. And I said, I'd rather have you move 30 some feet away and I just can see you. Is there a point where we could get far enough where you wouldn't think you would need that? And I'm like, I can be a little condescending like that, and I try not to, whatever, poke people in a way that's going to piss them off. But sometimes I have the tendency to do that, in the way I can present something. But he's a nice enough guy. He generally knows my personality, and I wasn't trying to be mean. It's just like, this stuff bothers me. It bothers you. Like, well, what if you were 50 feet away? Are you going to be wearing that? Like, that was what I was doing to him. He's like, no, I'm just more comfortable. This makes me feel comfortable. And I'm like, well, is that why do you guys that believe in that mask so much? Why do you think it's the panacea? Do you believe it's the panacea? Like it's just can stop all viruses and it's like, yeah, it is that effective. It is as effective as they say. They believe in every bit of it, which I've got to do research on that, which that just doesn't make any sense. Whatever they say is the pathogen should be 1,000 times smaller than cloth weave together. I could see like you go into a crowded grocery store and somebody sneezes, it might help, but to be like you're standing 20 some feet away from me, you think it's the panacea. So I need to do research on that. But the point of circling back to what I was saying, this Carl would say, like he would explain it away in his own terms, like Matt, that they're just this is what they need to do to feel safe to put on the show. It doesn't matter if there's nobody around. There might be somebody that walks up to them, and they would all have a way. This is per I don't know what you call it, the download, the normie download. They would all have a way to justify what what we saw with these reporters on the ground in Times Square in their masks. Um, but it was just the energy there. It was there's lights everywhere, so it looks like there's more activity than there is. But it just was there's nobody there for the most part. The energy was just dark. It was almost draining. The energy of watching these programs. It almost looked like, other than Anderson Cooper and Andy Cohen on CNN, um, it was like nobody wanted to be there. Carson Daly doing his hosting on, I believe it was NBC, looked like he didn't want to be there, but he had never had any personality to begin with. They just stalled Century, just recycle him back. Carson Daly, 25 years ago, MTV, just recycle him back. There's nobody, no new fresh face or stalled Century. Have to go back to the same themes. Why it has to operate this way, it does. We'll talk about that at another time. But you could have put anything into a cardboard cutout with push button verbal responses or remote controlled verbal responses, and it would have been more exciting than Carson Daly. But the most exciting thing, and it was absent. You think I'm not giving anybody any credit? Trust me, this is one of the most lowest of the low creeps that exists in this plane we call Earth. But the most exciting was the I don't want to say exciting. I don't know what the word is. Was Anderson Cooper and his little friend Andy Cohen, or maybe they're more than little friends. If that's what Pam's friend was saying, but it doesn't matter. They're at least up there. I'm giving credit to Anderson Cooper. Are you? I'm not, but I'm just keeping it real. He's at least standing next to. They have a few guests here and there, and then not too, but he's standing next to Andy Cohen. There's not. He never puts himself in a mask, but it was just bizarre. They're up there. It's almost like I don't know. It was almost their presentation was worse than if they were just presenting in their backyard. It was like they didn't seem to nobody care. They just were. Of course, they usually they have the reputation for drinking, like doing shots. I don't believe that's a put on. I believe he just didn't care. Didn't he wasn't his way of interviewing. I don't know. It's like, well, there's tens of millions of people watching, and he's just like, I don't know. It was I don't know how to describe it, guys. I'm at a loss for words. And then they would have guests. I guess was it Cameron Diaz popped in on that show, or Mariah Carey, and they're doing shots, and he's laughing with his friend Andy Cohen. Andy Cohen, I don't know who this guy is, but he was the most non-cyborg of the bunch, of the most real. There was a little bit of I don't know. It wasn't all dark with this whatever this character is, Andy Cohen. There was a ray of something real in him, but it was just guys. Then they would show another reporter down the street in the mask, and there'd be these little pockets of celebrators. Like they would have 2 to 3 people. Sometimes I don't think they ever had 4 people together. Sometimes they had 3 people together. Of course, everybody. So they let in these little pockets of celebrators, like fans, but they had to stand in these like little pens. Of course, everybody. They gave them all the same mask. They had these glittery purple, I believe, and it was just and then the guests. Okay, this is where it really gets bizarre. Or the singing acts. All right. Now look, guys. These celebrities and the singers, the Lady Gagas of the world. Okay, this is what really is strange to me, and it's not really that important to figure this out. I'm working on another summary of our predicament video that presents things in a little bit different way that I think you'll like if I can get it out tomorrow. I was going to do it today, but I just had to get this off my chest today. So the whether it be Metallica or Pearl Jam or Lady Gaga, these people haven't done anything. They haven't performed. They think they love the loosh, the energy. Mick Jagger probably goes and performs in his 70s because he has to. He's under the contract of the Dragon's Wing in some way. He can't ever get out, like Warren Buffett can never get out, or Zuck the Borg can never get out. He can't say, "I've done enough and I'm rich enough. I'm going to go do my own thing." Melvin P. Gates, Melvin, will never get out. It's the contract of Under the Dragon's Wing, the way I understand it. And maybe there will be an exception if Warren Buffett. It doesn't matter if Warren Buffett retires today. He's what, in his late 80s. He's all whatever. So they let him go off for a few months. They can't get out. So the point is, why that's one reason why Mick Jagger is up doing that in his 70s. But the other reason is the feel or the feeding of the energy of the crowd. Whether you want to take that to the level of just an incredible high because they're so jaded to life, that's the only way they can get off on life is to have 40,000 people just screaming and loving them, or you want to call it actual loosh, actual energy sucking, or prana, or whatever you want to call it. But the other reason, yeah. So so that's why Mick Jagger does it. Those two reasons: the sucking of energy, and because he has to, because he signed a deal in quote end quote blood, and he can't get out. Point is, after all of that, the point is, shouldn't there have been 100 megastars lining up to perform on Ryan Seacrest's show on ABC or Carson Daly's? The phone should have been ringing off the hook. These people crave attention. Come on, right? I mean, they crave attention. But where have they been? They've been crickets. Well, Matt, they've been performing in that. There's that continent that they can go to that doesn't exist on your map. Maybe, yeah, maybe, or probably. But we'll talk about that some other time. And do all these people really die? There's some. You pull out a map. There's somewhere on that map that you can't see that exists. There's a Gilligan's Island truth drop potentially, but not. I'm not going to go there. So even if they are, performing, even if they're performing for themselves in their own little eyes wide shut party, so that's not getting off on fans that truly love them. They're performing for their equals, like Metallica playing for, the Rockefellers or so. That's not them that needing the energy or getting off on that. The point is, there's Carson Daly or Ryan Seacrest, whoever produces that show. Metallica wants to play. Lady Gaga Madonna wants to appear. They all you would think would want to appear, right? What have they been doing? There's no concerts, nothing for 10 months. So, okay, but so obviously you know where I'm going to go with this. What they had was these retread. I don't even want to call them stars or celebrities. I don't know what they were. A Cyndi Lauper that was 30 years past where she should have, like 30 years ago. I'm not saying 30 years off her prime. I'm saying 30 years off where she should have never taken the stage again. At some point, Larry Bird, right about the time of the Dream Team, became too old and decrepit and bad back to play basketball anymore. I'm saying 30 years from that moment, not 30 years from anybody's prime. And Cyndi Lauper's up there. True colors shining through. I was like, what the hell is this? And somebody then, guys, these performances, it was the same retreads. J Lo came back. I mean, she's the only one she gets off on performing on New Year's Eve. And Pam was like, she's wearing a jacket. That'll come off. You'll see her boobs soon. I'm like, nah, it's cold. And the jacket came off. I'm like, you're right. But, okay, J-Lo, Cyndi Lauper. Oh, they went to one, it might have been NBC. They have these fake, let's go to John Mayer, and he pretends, he filmed it weeks ago. It's so, oh, thanks, Carson. Here's a new song I'd like to, filmed it weeks ago, and it's so obviously staged. Anything indoors, usually during a Times Square New Year's Eve event, anything filmed, let's go indoors to a performance. That's filmed weeks ago. The people inside with their New Year's Eve, party things that they're just pretending that it's New Year's Eve. That's been done that way for a long time. But I'm going to Pam, like, where are the stars? See, one, it, you would first off, if certain people in this reality make certain phone calls, even if Lady Gaga or Metallica or somebody, uh, Eddie Vedder, or whoever, even if they didn't want to play, there's certain creepy things like the creepy piano player and Under the Silver Lake. If they make certain phone calls, no, you're going to come to Times Square and play. Like, they don't have a choice. If somebody calls Bono, well, Bono does what he wants. No, no, no. There's levels. If somebody makes, it's like the way I've talked about Bob Geldorf for Band Aid, Feed the World, and then Live Aid, putting all those superstars together in the same room. Nobody could possibly do that. Have each star cancel their schedule for whatever it was that day, put them all in the same room, unless whoever was making that phone call had the power behind them, the power of the world control structure, or the power of what in these circles we call Illuminati, whatever that is. It's not Bob Geldorf. Oh, we'll get Bob Geldorf to organize it. He knows George Michael, and he knows Paul Young, and he can call them all and just ask because they like him. No, 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 no. They would never drop their schedule. They said, it's Bob Geldorf. Oh, I'm not taking. Tell me why I don't like Mondays. I'm not taking that call. He wants you to do what? Band-Aid, Feed the World, and whoever stars. Like, I don't give a flying f about. That's probably what the stars say about Feed Ethiopia. They say, I don't give an f. Oh, it's Bob Geldorf calling on behalf of this society or lodge or family or bloodline. Oh, well, I'll take the call now. Yeah, that's how it works. So whoever could tell Bob Geldorf to organize, who didn't do it on his own, okay, he's not good enough to organize these things years ago, Live Aid, Band Aid. You could do that. Whoever could make those creepy phone calls then, the creepy piano player from Under the Silver Lake, could do it now. Say, we're going to we're going to bring all these big bands in on these New Year's Eve shows, and they're all dying to perform anyway. It was like, so anybody screaming this video should be screaming at it. Like, Matt, obviously, the presentation of what they were trying to put forth was intentionally made dark, and there's no other explanation. There's no other explanation. Because if you have, oh, these guys are dying to perform, they got Pearl Jam back together, and people actually in their houses might actually have a good time, or they might actually enjoy it. Like, whoa, they put, these singers together in a duet, and I'm just, guys, I, thought, even bringing in like some marginal star like Sarah McLachlan would have been a big deal. Who's Melissa Etheridge last night would have been a big deal, and who the heck's that? I mean, so they could have brought all these stars in and said, well, if anything was real about these people, or they cared, or anything was human, for lack of better words, let's bring these stars in and finally show people that we care about these people. Let's show them a good time. But it was made dark intentionally. The energy was driven to the lowest level intentionally. I mean, these creeps, man, these creeps. These creeps, I don't know what to say. I don't know what to say. But they are just, I don't even want to say it because the video won't go out or whatever, but it is, these things are so low, the slime of the earth. And I know, guys, in a way, anybody screaming at the video deserves to be screaming. We would not be where we are. Okay, I keep coming back to this, and we have to remember this. It's not just all. I'm not trying to be super dark and doom and gloom here. We would not be where we are if these creeps weren't pulling off and trying to pull off what they're doing and operating the way they're operating. We have come so far, personally and spiritually, and recognizing that we are so much more than what they want us to believe. So their creepy actions have been a tremendous benefit in 2020 to us. I don't like the state of the world. You don't like the state of the world, and they ain't doing it they ain't loving us. They ain't doing it. But their actions benefit us because it has to benefit us, per the yin yang. But and I wouldn't go back. We've learned too much. I mean, I wouldn't go back. We've learned too much about the nature of reality itself, and more importantly, about the nature of ourselves. I wouldn't go back at all. Well, Matt, don't you want to go like halfway back? We've learned a lot from 9/11, so that could happen, but we don't. What happened in 2020? You'd want to go? No, I would not go back. I would not. That's the point of this tiny little incarnation. That's just a blip of a blip of a blip of a blip of a blip. It's nothing. You back up far enough. It's nothing. Don't put any stock. Do it. Use it the best you can, but don't put any real stock in it the way it wants you to. It's just a step in and a step out of the closet. So no, I wouldn't. I would not go back. I wouldn't trade anything. And the darker they make the world, the more per yin yang it must benefit me. And if you're watching, it must benefit you. I wouldn't go back. Um, but they are creeps. I mean, the way they do business, um, intentionally making these shows as dark and at low energy as possible to set a trend. I mean, if anybody's screaming this video, yeah, man, that sets the trend for the new year. And I don't believe they can pull off in the new year what they pulled off last year. I believe they're going to try to string this out as long as they can, but I still have a degree of hope for the normie, a degree where, at some point, even the Andy doll that just lowers itself with frequency wherever when the reality lowers itself, the Andy doll and the normie lowers itself. We call it the download because there's no other way to describe it. At some point, again, you would think they still have a recollection of what life potentially was or is supposed to be. Okay, so I still have the hope, no matter how much my friend Tony is an Andy and lowers with the frequency of the reality as it lowers, and we stay up here and grow further apart because we're in a different place. At some point, let's say they do 2021 just like 2020. It's the same stuff, but people are getting the rollout of the action Jacksonation, but then at any time they could somebody yelling this video saying, "Well, Matt, the Action Jacksonation's here. That has to change things." Well, yeah, if it continues to roll out for people, I'm not getting it, of course, but they could be, "Oh, there's adverse effects. We need to pause and reassess for 3 or 4 months." They can easily, "Oh, this person had not adverse effects. He or she or these 10 over here died, so we have to pause for 6 months and just string it." But at some point, the normie, my friend Tony, does he completely forget what life is supposed to be or what once was? Does he ever stand up and say, "I can't do this anymore"? That's the only last hope I have is even the normie of the normie at some point. And people that would argue with me, yelling back at me, going, "Well, no, they're not going to do this." And I would say, "Well, then take it to the extreme. What if we're in this exact same situation 10 years from now? 10 years from now. No, I would have left the country long before that. Find the one pocket that exists on this place called Earth where people aren't running around in masks. Somebody sent me a video from Yemen saying, "We're here. Look at the markets here. We're not in masks." I was like, "Yeah, maybe I want to come there." He's like, "Well, Matt, I want to remind you, Yemen's still in a war with Saudi Arabia, and Yemenis are being slaughtered. But if you think you want to come in the middle of a war with Saudi Arabia, that's better than people running around with a mask. Be my guest." But I guess when you're in the middle of a war and Saudi Arabia is slaughtering a bunch of your people, you're not going to worry about it. Just going, he said the government's tried to put people in a mask, but come on, it's Yemen. Just like people are like, "I'm not doing that." There's probably tiny little pockets. I'm sure there's at this point many places in Africa, of course, that just aren't doing this. And at some point, if this keeps up, I will find one of those places, even if I have to hire the Silesian pirates from Spartacus to sail me there, or sail there and so I yak off the side of somebody's private boat because I can't fly. I'm not gonna sit here in this madness. But the point was, if you just play it out to a ridiculous degree, like if they keep us in this situation for 10 years and there is no vax that cures everything, at some point does my friend Tony go, I would think this would happen at some point. I don't think it would take 10 years. I think it would be like, "I can't do this anymore. I can't do 3 years in a row of homeschooling. I can't do this anymore. I'm just gonna, F it." The way is that attitude. I guess half of you would probably say that attitude, if there's these people, there's still a little something in them that may be real that they could latch onto, like Red in Shawshank Redemption. He tries to get his parole and he tries to say the right thing the first time, and he tries to say the right thing the second time. Denied parole, Red denied. And the third time, I think at this point Andy had already escaped. He just said, he just didn't give a shit. Stamp your forms, Sonny, and stop wasting my effing time. He says some things. He's like, I'm not going to say what you want me to say. Yeah, the boy that committed that crime wasn't me. I try to talk to him. I try to but do what you need to do. Stamp denied, and stop wasting my effing time. And there's a lot of some people sent me some very after I covered that about 7 or 8 months ago or a year ago. People sent me some really profound emails about the reality itself, saying that the reality that attitude that Red had, where he was just completely didn't give a crap, just he wasn't holding on or trying to preserve or create it. That's what everybody has all these material things for, and all the Home Depot home improvement stuff was for over the last 20 years. Create more and more attachment, to material goods, more and more attachment to net worth through the home. Lowe's, Home Depot, so he had nothing to lose. And people sent me some profound emails saying that's, you want to fight, go against the reality itself and what it wants you to do. You have to have that attitude that Red had in Shawshank Redemption, and that starts with no attachment.